we would ask that people take their seats so that we can get started, please. Good morning, and thank you for joining us for this District 24 Legislative Information Forum hosted by the League of Women Voters and the Valley City Barnes County Development Corporation. I'm Angie Martin, and I am a League volunteer. And you can tell all of us volunteers, we all have silver badges on in case you need to talk to us about something after the forum. The League of Women Voters, which is 105 years old, is a nonpartisan civic organization. To learn more about the League, please see the materials on the information table at the back of the room. Visit our Facebook page or one of our websites, or you may even ask one of us local volunteers. The League's mission and the purpose of today's forum is to empower voters and defend democracy by facilitating the public's access to information about elections and lawmaking. And by the way, if my voice is not carrying to the back, please just raise your hand. Thus, the League has helped to create today's event so that people in District 24 can discuss information and views on important legislation now being considered by their elected representatives in Bismarck. In that spirit, we invite both individuals and groups to present information about bills that are of concern to you. In the past week or so, we've also reached out individually to inform many key community organizations of this opportunity to participate in our government. These include Valley City Commission, Barnes County Commission, Valley City Public Schools, Valley City State University, VCSU Teachers, SMP St. Raphael Care Center, CHI Mercy Hospital, Sanford and Essentia Clinics, the Open Door Center, South Central Adult Services, Farm Bureau, Farmers Union, Valley City Barnes County Library, Buffalo Bridges Social Services, City County Public Health, Local Nurses Association, Local AARP, Barnes County Rural Water District, Barnes County Tax Equalization, Barnes County Wildlife, Valley City Education Association, and the Cheyenne Valley Special Education. Please note that the League does not have positions on most of the bills likely to be discussed, and the League will not be advocating for any policy positions today, anyway. We would like to thank the District 24 lawmakers who are here today for bringing important updates and for coming to connect with the voters they represent in order to better understand what issues are important to you folks. We encourage you to ask questions. Please ask one question at a time. If you have a follow-up question, please talk with our legislators after the forum. We want to address as many of your questions as possible, so we ask you to be clear and concise. It's likely that we will run out of time, so please be understanding if your question does not get discussed, and do stay to visit individually with the lawmakers as time allows. Above all, we ask that the audience show respect to all participants. We do have some printed information for you. Please note the helpful information on the half-page handout, which looks like this. And also check out the printed listings of current bills for both the House and the Senate. We're fortunate to have a community-minded business leader generously offering her time and talents to moderate this forum. I'm delighted to introduce Jennifer Feist, Director of the Valley City Barnes County Development Corporation. And as you will see, she is a skilled communicator who is scrupulously fair and unbiased. Rick Ross, a League of Women Voters volunteer, will be our timer, and Rick sits right here at the front. Jennifer, I'll turn it over to you. And also, just a quick reminder, when we do the questions and answers and you are handed a microphone, please aim the blunt front directly up by your mouth where people won't hear you, and then talk as loudly as needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie, for the introduction and your information. Just as a reminder for the audience, we would ask that you select one bill per presentation or per comment. Start with one bill, and you will have 2 minutes maximum to review that bill and ask your question. So again, as Angie just mentioned, please be succinct. And then we would have our legislators respond to you. We are asking the response to be 2 minutes to reply, and then if there's a follow-up, just 1 minute for follow-up. And it's not to shut off good communication, but it is for us to be able to cover as much ground as we possibly can. So with that, I really appreciate Senator Wobbema, Representative Johnston, and Representative Kiefert being here today with us. And we will start off, since you are closest to me, Senator, I'm going to turn the mic over to Senator Wobbema and listen to him and the things that are important that you've covered and what's coming up. So with that, I'm turning it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I wasn't sure what kind of response we were going to see this morning with visibility a little bit sketchy and the wind blowing and the snow blowing. It's just the season we're in, I guess. My name is Mike Wobbema. I live just a couple miles north of town. I've been in the Senate since 2020. I just was reelected, thank you very much. And I chair the Workforce Development Committee, and I'm on the Education Committee. I'm not going to spend a lot of time up here because I want to leave as much time for questions as you have. But I just want to say on the Senate side, especially from the majority, our focus is really centered around just a couple of things, really. It's tax reform, property taxes, and workforce development and education. But I mean, there is a smattering of all kinds of things. So we're currently a little under what we expected for number of bills. I think our total is less than 1,200, but we're still expecting a few more bills. The Senate side has till Monday to submit the last of our bills, so we'll see several more coming. With that, I'm just going to step aside and let whoever wins the arm wrestle here to come up and talk for a second, and then leave it to you guys to ask your questions.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, everybody, for being here. My name is Dan Johnston, if you don't know that already. Mike is right. There's a lot of bills on property tax. I'm not sure which one's going to come out on top yet at this point, but I do have a few bills of mine that I would like to go over and see if I can convince you to get involved. The first is HB 1427. Currently under the existing Century Code, a victim of a sexual assault is often ostracized and removed from their school while the alleged perpetrator remains in the same educational environment. I fully understand the principle that an individual is presumed innocent until proven guilty. However, the question remains, why should a victim be placed in a position where they're forced to leave their educational setting, or worse, face their attacker while the accused continues the same?
Put it right up there.
Can everybody hear me a little bit better? Okay.
Sorry for the interruption.
I think I know how to use one of these things. Thank you, Jennifer. The North Dakota Constitution mandates a free education, and for the vast majority of North Dakota school-age students, this is a good provision. However, should a free education be offered no matter what? At what point does an individual lose some rights? Many times in our society, a constitutional right is curbed. For instance, a convicted sex offender may have a restriction placed on their freedom of movement. They aren't allowed to go near schools or parks that are frequented by children. Other times, law-abiding citizens have their Second Amendment rights curbed when they choose to enter a government building. So when does a perpetrator of sexual assault lose their right to roam the halls of our schools? Questions about who pays for virtual learning, distant learning, school transfer need to be hashed out by the House Education Committee, and I assure you they will come to a good resolution. But in the meantime, I would encourage you to contact the committee to express your support for this important legislation. No child should have to face their attacker in a school environment. Again, that bill is HB 1427. Another bill that I'm sponsoring for a constituent is HB 1544, and it will be heard on January 31st at 8:30 in the morning in the House Agricultural Committee. The bill deals with water drainage issues. Right now, if a landowner drains water onto an adjacent piece of land that is less than 80 acres, the dumped-on landowner has little recourse. Sometimes the impact of the drainage can have significant fiscal consequences for a landowner. 1544 establishes some safeguards for a landowner affected by drainage by requiring notification and reporting to the water board. This next bill, HB 1361, mandatory minimum sentences for human traffickers. This is a big problem in our nation and state. During the committee hearing for this bill, we heard powerful testimonies from survivors of human trafficking. No person should ever have to endure that kind of torture. Over the last 4 years, over 200,000 children have crossed our border, and we don't know who they were given to or where they are. I think it'd be wishful thinking to believe that many of those children are not victims of trafficking. The message I want to send to traffickers is do not come to North Dakota. You will face a minimum of 40 years for a felony AA, 10 years for a felony A, and 7 years for a felony B. And there are many facets of trafficking, not just with children. We heard testimony from some adults that were victims of it, and they're horrible stories, and the individuals that commit those acts, they shouldn't see the light of day. HB 1275, this is a bill that all three of us sponsored at the request of Barnes County Development. 1275 will provide for a natural gas supply infrastructure grant, something that would be extremely helpful for running gas lines to some of the homes in Valley City. Just to close out, I met with Mayor Dave, I met with Alan at the college, I met with many of you, and I will continue to do so as my schedule permits. And as usual, don't hesitate to keep reaching out to me via email, phone, or at the Capitol. I get to hang out with a lot of you at the Capitol. Sometimes it's the high school. Just the other day was the high school. Some kids came in and showed off some of their inventions. So with that, I'll hand the mic over to Dwight.
Good morning, and thank you for coming this morning. It's been a real exciting journey so far at the Capitol. We've got a little update on the bills that we have. It sounds like there's 1,670 bills and resolutions requested. The House has 628 bills, Senate has 355. We've heard 744 bills already. House has passed 93 bills and 80 bills have passed the Senate, so we've got a long way to go. We're looking at having to vote on probably 25 bills a day on the floor. So we've been getting probably 10 a day so far. So we're going to be going probably till evening hours here this coming week. And like Dan mentioned, we had that one bill that I sponsored to provide funding for natural gas infrastructure. I presented that bill on Thursday, and we had real good support from some other areas too. So I think that looks like that could possibly happen. And the reason we need that is because we don't have natural gas on the south side of 94. And the reason for that is they want over $300,000 just to go underneath 94 to get to the south side. And why it costs that much, I have no idea. But this would provide some funding for that. One of the other bills that I'm sponsoring is, it involves the schools. Schools are required to report abuse or neglect when they see it. So they report it to Child Protective Services, and once that happens, they're out of the loop. They don't have any idea what's happening, if there's an investigation or anything being done. So if Johnny comes back to school the next day with a black eye and a broken arm, they can't call anybody, they just have to file another report. Then after that, another report. So this bill would establish communication between the school system and Child Protective Services, so they can just contact them and report what they're seeing. I mean, the schools have had kids come into their office asking for help, showing pictures of their parents' drugs and drugs paraphernalia, and all the school can do is, do a report. So this will enable some communication between Child Protective Services and the school to provide better help for the student. And in one case out west, there was a student, the school reported that there was a problem. So they reported again, reported the third time, and the parent pulled this kid out of school so the kid wasn't seen anymore. Well, it wasn't too long later, they found the kid dead at home, 13 years old, only weighing 21 pounds. So somebody dropped the ball here, and we're trying to get more communication to provide better care for the students. And one other question I have for you folks, are you utilizing the government site where you can actually watch every committee hearing and hear the testimony? It's on the ndlegis.gov site. So you can watch every hearing, listen to all the testimony and discussion. You can provide testimony if you want to say something. If you want to, you can drive out to Bismarck, and speak your piece in front of the whole committee too, which is the most beneficial way to do something. But you can follow every bill that goes through every discussion on the committee. And with that, I think I'll conclude my time.
Thank you. And I want to thank all three of our legislators for sponsoring that bill relative to the natural gas funding. My goal in the legislature, working with our representatives here, is to try and do whatever I possibly can to bring the cost of housing down. And we know what that looks like in today's environment. So there is another bill coming up. I'm going to take a liberty right now. House Bill 1577 is another one to watch, and it mirrors the State Water Commission's Water Line Extension Fund, and that's coming up this next week, and I'll be providing testimony for that. This bill, House Bill 1577, is about sanitary sewer extensions. So we're taking an existing program and mirroring that for sanitary sewer with the goal of reducing the cost to the homeowner. So another one to take a look at. But thank you guys very much for helping with the natural gas. I really appreciate it. Okay, so that's my 2 cents right in the beginning. So we will start taking questions from the audience. Please start with one topic, one bill, and you can comment, and then we'll have the legislators respond. First question. And we will run around with the mic. And please help yourself to coffee and cookies, and thank you to Kara Anderson from my office to help with all of that. Thanks, Kara.
Well, mine is a combination of question and statement, observation. To me, one of the most important bills so far in the North Dakota Legislature is Senate Bill 2128. And that would provide for mandatory sentencing up to a certain point. It would also include where if somebody was sentenced, they'd have to serve at least 85% of that sentence. Why is this bill necessary? It's been necessary for quite a while. A similar bill was presented during the last session. It was defeated. I think what law enforcement is saying is we have a whole new dynamic that's out there right now. Part of it has to do with, more and more people that have severe mental illness that need to be helped. There's no question about that. And there are bills along those lines that would help those people. But the number one priority of government is safety. That's number one at the federal, the state, the county, and the local level, is safety of its citizens. Resources have to be provided to keep people safe. One of the things that law enforcement is saying is that these types of incidents where people are arrested and they are put into jail and then they are released is increasing. It's increasing. And they also say that more serious crimes are receiving less and less time in jail. And when people aren't in jail, they're out there and they can commit more crimes, and that is happening.
Sir, excuse me, we're getting down to, you've got a half a minute, less than a half a minute left. Do you have a question, please, for them? Do you have a question about this?
Oh, yeah.
That you can ask
Yeah,
them? Could you please ask the question then, so that they can respond? Because you're about out of time.
Okay.
Okay,
Well,
thank you.
I had to prepare for the questions.
Okay, so if you could just
All right,
ask
so my
the
question to all three of the District 24 representatives is, in its current form, could you support this bill if it makes it out of the Senate into the House and if it gets voted upon in the Senate? It's Senate Bill 2128, and how do you feel about that?
Thank you for the question. Honestly, I haven't seen the bill yet. I do know that it's been heard in committee this past week, but I haven't had a chance to look at it. But in general terms, when people commit crimes and there's a sentence associated with it, they need to serve a reasonable amount of time as a consequence to their actions. And so I think part of the problem is they're being released early for various reasons, but that effectively creates more of a problem because people aren't concerned about consequences. So in general terms, just from what you stated, and I'm looking at it here from just briefly glancing at it, I'm in support of it, but we'll see how it comes out of committee with what kind of, well, we don't know the unintended consequences of what else might be in there. And so that drives really knowing. The bill is about 9 pages long, so don't know what all is covered in that. We want to be careful to make sure that we're not creating other second, third, or effect problems.
Yeah, same answer. I'm going to have to take a look at the bill. I haven't seen it yet. I'm having some connectivity issues here, so I don't have it in front of me. As I read earlier, I actually am sponsoring a mandatory minimum sentence bill concerning traffickers. I'm not shy of supporting that type of legislation. Arguments would be that you're taking flexibility away from the judge, but I think oftentimes we're seeing judges drop the ball and giving very minor sentences for serious crimes. And I think that's the nexus of where these types of pieces of legislation are coming from. So I'll take a look at it for sure.
Excuse me, I too am having trouble with my computer. I can't get logged on to laws for some reason here. But I haven't seen the bill yet either. But I understand that's a big problem where the judges aren't giving out the sentences. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, the judges aren't passing out the sentences that they can. I mean, I could tell you some horrific cases where they should have been put away for a long time, and the judge just gave them a suspended sentence. So that's the problem. The judges aren't giving out the sentences that should be handed out. That's why we have the mandatory sentences. And like I said, I haven't seen the bill yet. I'd have to take a look at it, but that's why we need it, because the judges aren't handing out the sentences they should be doing.
Okay, next question then from the audience.
Hi, my name is Anita Tulp, and I'm the director of the Valley City Barnes County Public Library. And I'm going to direct this question to you, Representative Johnston, because you were the one that submitted this bill. I am questioning bill number 1141, and it says it's a bill to act to amend and reenact section 16, 1 through 10-02 of the North Dakota Century Code relating to using public services or property for a political purpose. We had quite the discussion yesterday trying to figure out exactly what this bill means. So from our understanding, it means that us as librarians would not be allowed to become a part of NDLA, which is the North Dakota Library Association, and use the library funds to pay for those dues, or use library funds to attend the organization's events and conference. So, but I think this is a broader thing than that. I think it would affect a lot of people who would be members of maybe the League of Cities, any chamber member. That means if a chamber speaks out in any political support towards or against a bill, then we as a library would not be able to use public funds to be a membership, obtain membership of the chamber. So if there's some other meaning that I'm missing in this bill, I would really like to know that. As far as I can say right now, I'm not in favor of this bill. Thank you.
So I'm going to hand that off to Representative Johnston.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think the reason for that bill is we see a lot of state agencies. Okay, so in the state, it's against the law to use, for a state agency, to use taxpayer money for political purposes. So what they're doing, the workaround, is these state agencies are joining groups or PACs, and they're sending the money to that group or PAC, and then that group or PAC then gets political. And so this, and a lot of people just don't think that's right. So it's like a loophole in the law that they're taking advantage of, and that's the reason for the bill.
Question over here.
All right, I'm Mary Lee Nielsen. I'm a longtime marketing coordinator for tourism. And the way you're speaking about that, that does happen in tourism. There is a PAC, not a different organization to help fund, to promote tourism bills. And they do work with tourism on it. Tourism, does not have a voice, as none of the government agencies do, politically. But I think your bill muddies the waters on things like that, so we can do positive things to promote North Dakota in this case. So I think we need a better look at this bill, because I agree 100% with Anita, saying that we have to give a voice to people. Thank you.
Yes, Mary. The bill specifically says that the state or any agency, department, bureau, board, commission, or political subdivision may not use public funds to be a member of, contribute to, or endorse a private organization that has endorsed a candidate or publicly supported or opposed a ballot measure within the last 10 years, immediately preceding the date of the contemplated use of public funds.
Another question over here.
Okay.
You've got a question? Okay, sorry about that. I'm looking this way.
All right. Hello, I'm Gail Peterson. I'm a member of the North Dakota Nurses Association. First of all, please stop at our North Dakota Nurses Day at the Legislature on the 29th. And we will have a booth there honoring the U.S. Cadet Nurse Corps, who are the only group of veterans who served in World War II that are not recognized as veterans. I would like to ask your opinion on House Bill 1341. It failed by 1 vote last session. That person is now out of the legislature. She was a nurse, and I'm glad that she is gone, excuse me. And it protects hospital workers from being assaulted. It is extending the EMS privileges to increase the penalties for patients that attack healthcare workers. So please give me your idea on that. The last time there was only 1 negative testimony against this, and that was from the prison service, because we were too full. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gail. The only thing I remember about this bill is that we had a long protracted discussion, but I can't speak to the specifics of it. I think that the people that we have that dedicate their lives to helping people in the hospital environment, especially emergency rooms, I think that's mostly where the conversation was focused on, was people coming in an emergency room situation and then being assaulted because of whatever reason they were, and trying to single out this group of medical people as being a protected class from that perspective. Might have been the only catch in this, but I think we have to recognize the vulnerable environment they find themselves in when they're trying to help somebody recover from whatever traumatic event that's taking place. And so I'll be interested to see. Of course, it's got to get through the House again before it comes to the Senate, and that's what happened last time. So, but did it start in the House last time as well? Okay. 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 So I think we'll take a good look at it. Obviously, if it gets to the Senate, and I think the Senate typically is amenable to those kinds of protections when those things happen. But you know, we have. We got 13 new senators this year, so the personality of the body changes with every session as each election takes place, and so we'll see how it goes from our perspective. But
yeah, thanks for the information, Gail. This is the first time I've heard of the bill. I do have some people in the medical field in my family, and I'm partial to nurses, so I'm probably inclined to support the bill. I'll just say it though.
Could you give me the bill number again?
1141.
1141. Yes, sir.
I think it's 1341.
Excuse me, I'm getting the wrong information from mine.
1341.
Okay. I remember the bill last year, and I think I would have been in favor of it, but we just have to, look at why this is happening. I mean, why do you have somebody in an emergency room trying to attack somebody that's trying to help them? I mean, it's a drug issue or it's a mental health issue, and this just stems from the state backing out of providing services and forcing it on the local level to deal with it. And some of these people, it happens over and over and over again. They show up to the emergency room and start causing trouble. But that's what we have to look at, is why is this happening? How do we address it? But that's where I think we need to provide more services in Jamestown instead of less.
Jennifer, I have a follow-up back here. Just first I have a follow-up.
Clarification on that.
Clarification?
Okay, we're going to have a clarification.
Emergency room is already covered. This is for facilities. This is the ICU nurse that gets kicked in the ribs as she's looking at the IV. It goes well beyond that. It's the maintenance person that comes to a nurse or nurse aide's aide, whoever. There's mental health provisions in there for dementia and other situations, but this is not emergency room. This is facility.
Thank you. Okay, we have a follow-up question.
Yes, please.
Sharon Boer, I am representing Sanford because they contacted me about this bill, 1341. And so I would like to have the legislators take a copy of that, if you can give it to them. Anyway, Sanford Health is in favor of that bill, and I just wanted everyone to know that.
Thank you, Sharon. Okay, and then there was another question over here. It's passed. Are you? Go right ahead. Every question is important. So if you have a question for the legislators, that would be great.
Okay, going back to the previous bill where the government can't give private organizations and groups, PACs, money if they have been in support or opposing a bill, correct? That's my understanding of it. So years ago, the state gave the Chamber of Commerce money, spent the most amount of money they could to try to take our ability to pass constitutional measures away. You guys spent more money, said it was too easy, the bar was too low. And so now you're gonna try to take, no, maybe not you guys, but I mean, you guys are Republicans, you guys are the majority in the House, or I mean the House and the Senate are this entire state, your supermajority. So, I mean, birds of a feather. So, I'm just curious why this bill is coming through when you guys obviously use this tool to, I lost exactly the way I was going to say this, but I'm sorry. I just have a problem with the way it was worked out.
I think I can respond. This would be an attempt to curtail the government's ability to engage with lobby groups for this. So this would be really the answer you're looking for. But it's got to get through the wickets first. So, but I think the answer you're looking for is what this bill is trying to do. It's trying to prevent state government from lobbying for special interest items. So probably prevent the event that you're talking about, of money going to commerce for the purposes of lobbying for a specific issue.
No,
I think so. I think this bill will accomplish what you're trying, what your desire would be.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a House or a concurrent resolution 3003 that would bring the threshold for a ballot initiative up to 60%. And I'm willing to bet that some of these state agencies are going to use this loophole in the law to advocate on behalf of that measure, whether you're for it or against it. And that's what we're trying to bring it into.
I guess I haven't had a chance to really look at it and study it. I'm in human services and agriculture, so some of these other bills, you don't get a real chance to look at them until they hit the floor. And it's unfortunate, but that's how it works. We depend on each committee to ask the questions, hear the testimony, you know, dig it apart, come up with the best answer. So like this particular bill, I haven't had a chance to even look at it.
Another question over
Yeah,
here?
can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thanks for coming today, and thank you for presenting 1544 on drainage. Kathy Hogan on the Senate side has another one that pertains to drainage, and I hope you can work together on it. It's a good start. Anyway, I'd like to talk today about Senate Bill 2174. This is odor setbacks for CAFO operations. CAFOs are concentrated animal feeding operations, industrial farm factories, basically. And so what this bill does is it decreases the distances between CAFOs and homes, recreational areas, businesses, any structure in general. It takes away the distinction between hogs and other animals, and we all know hog stuff smells worse than anything else. And it further restricts the ability of local municipalities to control setbacks by using a odor footprint tool. This is all complicated stuff. I have it on the board here for anybody who's interested. Okay, so the problem with this is that this is designed to make it easier for CAFOs to be placed wherever they wish. Impose the idea of the state, first of all, taking away local control of localities to protect their own environments. And then they're further restricting it by using this possible odor footprint tool. These decreased setbacks come at the expense of more allowable odors, air, and water pollution. I should mention that this has to do with odors, but it does not address things like things that you can't smell, like hydrogen sulfide, methane, and PM 2.5, which are the little particles that cause heart attacks and strokes. So I'd like your comment on this bill. It already has come to a Senate hearing on Thursday, and it was not voted on.
Thank you. Ready or not?
I'm looking, I'm trying to get it pulled up so I can look at it. We have talked about, just for transparency, we met before the session with Dr. Luke to talk about this particular issue. It's near and dear to her heart. The trouble we have in the state is a desire to increase and diversify agricultural operations, and confined animal feeding operations is one of those things that's being looked at. So she's trying to make sure that the left lane and the right lane is narrow enough so that people are protected. But I haven't looked at this particular bill, and I don't know the specifics of it. And but I did look at, just briefly, what testimony was presented. There were a couple pieces of testimony presented in favor of it. I didn't look at who they were, but there was a great big long list of people opposed. I think those in favor were organizations, and those opposed were individuals. So it'll be interesting to see what agriculture does. From a personal perspective, I think we need to provide the opportunity for the market to do what the market does, but I recognize that we maybe have some work to do with regard to making sure that left and right lane is clearly defined and doesn't put people in undue harm.
Yeah, thanks, Vanlin. I'm a free market guy, but at the same time, there has to be a fine line between free market and also protecting the health and the quality of life for the residents of our state and our towns. So this is the first I think I've heard of this bill, so I will look at it when I get a chance. Thank you, Vanlin.
This bill will probably have to crossover come into the Ag Committee, which I'm on, so I can watch for it. But if you have concerns, I mean, the best thing to do is submit testimony. Or better yet, come out to Bismarck and speak your piece about it. But the bottom line of some of these issues, animal production in North Dakota, we have all the ethanol plants producing all of this feed. And we'd like to be able to utilize that in North Dakota instead of shipping it to other states for them to feed to their livestock. And the flip side of that is we had a bill in the Ag Committee regarding artificial meat. I mean, is that the way we want to go? Not have cattle fed and not produced, and then have artificial meat brought in from someplace? They already have artificial chicken, I think, in California. It's like $12 to $17 a pound. But that's what's on the flip side of it. If you want to have cattle produced here, or do we want to have something artificial made in a laboratory someplace? But it will come to my committee, and I'll watch for it. And it is a contested issue, but we need to provide for our livestock producers and use up this feed if we can.
Am I allowed to respond?
I'm sorry, we need to have a mic in front of you. As I'll allow you just a quick comment or follow-up, okay?
So free markets are fine and production of food is fine, but is this industrial animal operation the only way to go? It comes with a lot of risks. What I've seen with the way these things are being permitted and being supported is that the state government is putting its thumb heavily on the side of these industrial operations, sometimes at the expense of independent farmers, particularly like I know in Abercrombie, the dairy farmers are really going to eat it. Hog farmers, they're disappearing fast. And the profit is not necessarily going to the farmers, it's going to these out-of-state corporations who basically control the production, etc., the marketing, etc. It's not necessarily going to the people of North Dakota, but they are using our resources and they are polluting. So if you're talking about free market, everybody plays by the same rules. You don't put your thumb on the scale. Thank you for listening.
As moderator, I'll hold my comments until later. So another question, please.
Hi, I'm Cindy Ross. I was a special education teacher for 30 years. it came to my attention that Mr. Johnston voted no about some wording that was passed. Being a special education teacher when I started 30 years ago, I would go to, many of us had students and friends in our classes that just kind of disappeared when they were about 16. And when I began my career in special education, I had a superintendent tell me one time that, nope, we don't have any kids with emotional disturbance here. You know why? Because they were kicked out. They were not educated. They were the ones that did not have a chance. So my question is more specifically to you, Mr. Johnston, is why did you vote no on rewording a disturbance to a disability? And I just feel like I don't understand what the no meant.
So to clarify, disturbance to a disability, is there a specific house number or senate number that you're asking about? Or probably Representative Johnston, you
It's House
probably...
Bill 1164.
1164, okay.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I don't have the bill in front of me, but I think that this bill is just updating some language.
Right.
Am I correct? And just in looking over the bill, when I had it for the first time that day, it looked like there was a lot of duplicate language in it, and I was wondering why the committee didn't see that. And so that was my only reason. I just thought, if we're going to put this in century code, why not get it right?
Question over here. And
I'm
then,
Alvin Knudsen. I'm concerned about CO2 and where it's going, as several states are. It's a major controversy. Some people say it's great. Some people say we need to get rid of it. Well, we need it for plants, we know that. So right now you got 3 bills coming up. House Bill 1292, House Bill 1414, Senate Bill 2322 in regards to common carrier of CO2. We know that we need the CO2 for plants, and you look at scientists and some say we have too much, some say we need to maintain a certain level. So it's nice if they come up with the numbers. The numbers I've seen, that's not a problem, but that's scientists for you. More importantly, it's the eminent domain issue. Taking land from people, and this is all investors that are doing this for their own personal gain, basically. And eventually, you're going to see it here in North Dakota if it goes through, and it's not going to be stored. It's going to be used to get more oil out of the ground, which we understand they get money out of it. And they don't really know the true effects of putting it into the ground and whether or not it's going to escape, much less the safety risks of the CO2. So I guess I'd like to just understand your stance on these CO2 pipelines, and more importantly, eminent domain. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Eldred. I think the market will drive what's going to happen, and if there's opportunities for people to engage in the market and to make money doing this kind of thing, that's all well and good. But when you start exerting the kind of pressure that requires eminent domain, that's a showstopper for me. I think just one more thing about the science. Some scientists will say we're at one of the lowest levels of CO2 in the atmosphere that we've been in an eon. So which scientists are you going to believe? I really oppose the eminent domain. If they can negotiate with the landowner to be successful in putting the pipeline through it, God love them. But if the farmer is not willing to play in that game, then they shouldn't resort to strong-arm tactics using government agencies to compel them to do so.
One thing I would like to know is why did the PSC not release the plume effect demonstration? This is buried pretty shallow, these pipelines, and they're under enormous pressure. And there have been ruptures in the past where people, I think in Missouri, there was one where a lot of people got injured. If you're downstream to one of these pipes, now you got to remember carbon is denser than air, and so it sinks. If you're in a low spot, you're dead. Right? They can't even send in a rescue vehicle because a vehicle uses a combustion engine. So what are you going to do? The pipelines, they're definitely not a common carrier. There was a ruling down in South Dakota that stated just that. So there's no way that you should be able to use eminent domain for it. I'm a free market guy, and if you want to invest in something like that, that's fine. I'm all for it. The problem is, and the only reason why any politician out there is for this, is because it's tied to federal grants. So this is purely a Green New Deal initiative, which is kind of weird. Because carbon, I mean, if you look at greenhouse owners, they literally inject their greenhouses with carbon to make their plants grow. It's plant food. So why are we trying to bury this stuff? Anyway, there's a way to extract oil now, and it's worked really well. This all just goes back to the money. It's federal money.
I guess first off, I'm all for the property owner retaining his rights to his land. I think I got an email where I saw that Trump did something to deal with this issue with the pipeline too. I'd have to look at that a little bit closer. But that's the push, to get the carbon out there so we get more oil out of the ground, to keep it cheaper and have our own supply. And I know there's some talk about if they don't do the pipeline to transport it by rail. Well, that's probably a lot more dangerous than having a pipeline. So each of these bills, there's like 3 or 4 of them, we'll have to look at them and deal with them each one at a time. And but yeah, there's a lot of different people saying that you can use it now and you can use it, but as far as I understand, they're already doing the process all west and getting more oil out of the ground.
I'm not sure how the PSC could go ahead and authorize that. That doesn't make sense either to me, but if a court says, if the judge says no, how can the PSC issue authorization? Anyway, I mean, not a good situation. Question over here.
Good morning, I'm Tracy Zamu, Executive Director of the Open Door Center here in Valley City and Lisbon. And my question pertains to House Bill 1012, which is the DHHS budget, sponsored by the House Appropriations Committee. And it is going to be up for a hearing, is scheduled for January 27th, which is Monday, I believe. The bill provides appropriations for defraying expenses in a variety of divisions of the Department of Health and Human Services, which is a huge area. I'm going to specifically comment and ask a question regarding the sides of adult and aging services specific to adult residential, such as our high-soaring Eagle Ranch just south of Valley City, and the Division of Developmental Disabilities, which is the other area that we serve greatly. Without state-supported inflationary increases, Open Door Center and all other state community providers will continue to struggle to recruit and retain qualified employees to provide necessary supports to some of our state's most vulnerable populations. My question to all 3 of you is, do you support standard inflationary increases for those entities such as us that do not receive private pay?
I guess I'm a little confused of your question, and so help me clarify. Does this come out of the HHS budget?
Yes.
Okay.
It's addressed in the House.
Okay. So, no, I'm not opposed to inflationary increases. But the difficulty I have with the HHS budget is in the last biennium, it went up by over 14%. And the prior biennium before that, it was 9.8%. Last biennium, their initial request was a 25% increase. That is the largest budget in the state, nearly at about $6 billion. And so I have a hard time accepting that that, and I don't know what their ask is this time, but a hard time understanding that you wouldn't get an inflationary increase or a cost of living adjustment to your budget when they have such a substantial increase in the budget in the first place, which just begs the other question. The other question is, what does HHS do with the huge amounts of money that we give to them? Understanding that a large portion of it is federal money, and it's matching and all of that, and I understand that, but I have particular questions about their budget in general, but I do support an inflationary increase. That's just keeping up with today, so.
Governor Armstrong's budget put in like a 1.5%, which is not the standard inflationary increase of 2%.
Okay.
And remember, I mean, DHS is huge. I mean, it covers all sorts of services in the state of North Dakota. And hence why the budget is
Right, and that's really my question is, with it, HHS is huge and they have a lot of programs and they move money back and forth and around, and there's some transparency and accountability issues that I'm concerned about with regard to that budget. And are these programs all viable? Are they the right programs that we should be funding? And I mean, you just can't fund every program that comes to you with a handout and a tear in their eye. But it seems that when you have a 14% increase or 10% increase in back-to-back bienniums, the perception may not be reality, and I recognize that, but the perception is that they're a little bit out of control from that perspective. So at one point, something percent increase is not reasonable in my mind, considering we've had double-digit inflation over the last few years. So
I'll reach out to you, we can ask a little tutor, okay?
Yeah, I'd be up for it. Include me in that invite. Yeah, 1.5%, that does seem pretty low, especially when you look at wages, whether you're private or public. They've just failed over the last 4 years to keep up with the increased cost of living. Now, I look at all state agencies, and I'm sure there's a lot of efficiencies and a lot of fat trimming that we could do, and that's probably no different than with human services as well. But yeah, I'm definitely for pay raises, especially inflation-adjusted pay raises.
I'd agree with previous two speakers. I'm not against increases in inflationary, but this bill will be in front of my committee next week. But I would urge you, if you have some ideas, suggestions, suggest amendments or whatnot, please type it out and forward it to the committee, because like here we can talk all day. When you send in your testimony, the whole committee sees it. Better yet, drive out there and talk to the whole committee, because that's when it's for and against. We pick it apart and try to come up with the best solution. So by all means, please submit testimony. I could add just a second. You can do that up to like an hour before the hearing.
So 1 hour before the hearing, you can submit testimony. And if anyone has any questions as to how you do that, and not able to get through for some reason, I have submitted testimony several times, so you can always just give us a call at the office and we would be happy to help out. We've got 4 more lined up. Okay, so.
And just for clarification, for some committees, it's that morning by 8 o'clock. For some committees, it's an hour prior. So please go online and look at the committee hearing when it's happening, and it'll tell you when you have to submit testimony. So be prepared to do that.
Okay, so we have 4 more. Go ahead.
A quick question. Representative Kiefert brought up that there are so many bills that you guys have to take care of, and you can't stay on top of everything, understandably. And so could you just each give us a quick outline of how you decide real quick on something that you don't know about? Do you go by constituents that have contacted you? What is your process that you go through to try to decide on something that you didn't actually get to sit on?
Well, each person has got their own personality and how they do things. So for me, if I know constituents are contacting me on an issue, and it's emails typically, Then I'll take a look at it and see, but I'll also look at, like I got several emails on a particular issue this week, and they were from all over the country. Those are not who I'm listening to. But they do junk up your inbox, so that makes it really hard to figure out, and you've got to rack and stack which emails you're paying attention to. So I'll do that. But in general terms, if you don't have the opportunity to have seen the bill ahead of time, we really rely on the presenter on the floor that morning or that afternoon who describes the bill, talks about what the committee recommended, whether it's a do pass or do not pass, and goes through the process. And while that person is talking, I'll try to do a scan and see if I can understand it better. But we really trust our colleagues on the floor to give us this great skinny. And as with anything, personalities come into play. And so for some colleagues, you go, I will believe absolutely everything this guy says. And for some, you go, I need to look at this a little bit more because I'm not, it's just kind of the nature of human interaction. So mostly for me, I'm relying on what the committee has done and who's standing up to present the bill out of committee.
Yeah, it's the same for me, but to give you an idea of the typical day, like Thursday, the Transportation Committee, that's my B committee. My A is Judiciary, but on Thursday, we heard about 10 bills, right? But if you're someone like me, you're sponsoring a lot of legislation. Last week I had like 3 bills I had to present to other committees that day, so that takes me away from my committee work, so I don't even get to fully hear a lot of the bills that are in that committee because I'm running around. Now if you're like Dwight, who doesn't really sponsor that many, it's easy, right? But yeah, so we do rely on constituents. It's nice to, when you reach out to us, let us know what's important to you. And we also rely on each other. The greatest lobbyist in the Capitol is other legislators, and that's a big part of your job.
Yes, it's good to receive an email from one of you folks alerting us to a problem. You can say there's something wrong with this bill and give us a simple explanation what's wrong with it. But typically, how it works out there, you depend on the committee. You depend on them to ask all the questions, hear all the testimony, and come up with the right answer. And they have what they call a consent calendar that we go through every afternoon. If a bill comes to the floor that's got a 14-0 due pass, there's a bunch of them that are all due pass with no complications. They'll pass them all at once. And you have an opportunity to challenge or pull any of them off there if you have an issue with it. But it helps to get an email from you folks. And I'll tell you one thing you don't want to do is get on the opposite side of AARP. They're really well organized. You get a lot of emails from them. But raw milk, I mean, you'll get lots and lots of emails on those type of issues too. But we read the ones that you guys send us and take into account what you're saying, and we can challenge it. I had one bill that the committee came out 13-1. I was the only one for it, and I got it turned around on the floor. But without knowing what was wrong with the bill and how to approach it, doesn't give you a lot of guidance. So we appreciate the emails from you folks and keep doing it.
Additional questions from the audience? Dave, do you have a question?
I do.
Okay.
Good morning, everybody. Dave Carlsrud, Valley City. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for sponsoring. Thank you guys for serving, and thanks for being here. The elephant in the room for the cities. The property tax, 1176. Everybody here, I would guess, or the majority would say we need property tax revision or reform. I agree. You guys are working on it, understand that. The only thing that is concerning at this point to the League of Cities, or cities as a group, I can't speak for the people in the league. However, we had a meeting the other day, and the 3% cap is alarming at this point. And I understand where you guys are. We're concerned about the sustainability of our programs, and we talked about safety earlier, and you know, half of our budget goes for fire and rescue and police. So we're concerned about the 3%. Maybe you could just offer a couple of comments, please. Respectfully asking, okay? Thank you.
I would never expect anything other than respectfully asking from Mayor Dave. Everybody understands that property tax is a big, big issue in the state. And the legislature understands probably more than most that if we don't do something substantive to modify and reform and address the property tax issue, that in the next election cycle, 2 years from now, it will come back and property tax, whoever's idea of that plan is, will probably pass with a vengeance, and then we'll have to deal with the aftermath of that. So we're trying to prevent the aftermath piece from happening. The difficulty that comes into play with all this is everybody thinks, I think it's like school districts as well, everybody thinks that they live in the best school district in the state. Everybody thinks that they live in the best community of the state, and whatever their people are doing is the best for that particular community, which is the best program the state could have. But they're all different. And therein lies the rub. It becomes one of the things you call it. Are you familiar with the acronym NIMBY? Not in my backyard. It's okay, we need to do something, but we're okay. Not in my backyard. So that's where the devil's in the details there. And I think what this whole, my stance has been for the whole property tax issue is it really lies in the hands of the voters. So the voters are complaining that property taxes are out of control, but the voters are the ones who have the control in their hands and they don't exercise it properly. And I don't mean to disparage anybody in particular, but if you keep re-electing the same individual to the county commission or the city commission or to whatever these, or school board or whatever, and then you're going to keep getting what you got. And so that's really the answer. It should be at the grassroots level of making sure that you hire or elect the right people who are going to maintain fiscal control and do the right things for you, but we've lost that time. And so we're going to have to take some stand. Now the state over the past several bienniums has absorbed 70 to 80% of the school board or school funding into the state and out of the property tax cycle, as well as 100% of the public health piece has come into the state and out of the property tax cycle. But then we hear that the legislature has not done anything for property tax. Well, I just told you what we've done. We've not done a great job of selling that to the rank and file voter. So I think the trend, the motion, the inertia is a cap. The only way to really reform it and make it somewhat workable is to put on a cap. But still allowing for the opportunity of an election of the population to exceed that cap if the voters recognize the need and want to elect it or provide for that over them. And that will presumably operate or offer some semblance of control. But that's not the right answer for everybody. And if a political sub decides not to go all the way to the 3% and keep something in reserve, then there's a method in the next 5 years, I think, that you can exceed that 3%, but you over the years you can't exceed 3% effectively. So if you did a 2% 1 year, the next year you could go to 4%, and you're still within that in a kind of a 5-year rolling average kind of thing. But I know I'm going long here, but this is a really difficult problem to solve because everybody has got an idea, and the trouble is when you provide a solution to one sector of society, the other sectors of society suffer for it. I got a text from one of our constituents here that says, so everybody gets a property tax break but the farmers, huh? So that's just, so if we did it for the farmers, then, so everybody gets a property tax break but the people who live in cities. And that's kind of what, so it becomes, so these guys are trying to, the guys on appropriations that are working this are trying really hard to make it as equitable as possible. equal is not fair and fair is not equal, and that becomes kind of the conundrum of it all. So it's a long way around to saying we're trying. And we recognize the shortcomings of each option as it becomes, but where's the best balance?
Yeah, I hear the same concerns. The person I rent my place from in Bismarck, she has several houses that she rents out, and she says to me, you know, if they're just going to address primary property tax residents, that leaves me out. And she showed me a list of what she pays, and it's astounding what she pays. But she says, you know, a lot of my rentals have people in them that they can't afford to buy a house. That's why they're in them. And she says, every time I get a rate hike with my property tax, I have to pass that on to them. I have no choice. So, you know, I've heard some other proposals like, you know, the state fully taking over K through 12, which actually, that's a constitutional mandate, so that should already be happening. Now, for some people, that would amount to about a 50% reduction in their property tax. And that would be across the board. So that'd be farmers, that'd be primary residents, country, city, it doesn't matter. But the question is, and to get to Mayor Dave's point with caps, at Kelly Armstrong's, our governor's inauguration address, he said, listen, if the state's going to take a $500 million stake in property tax, he said, I get local control, but you better believe we're going to have a say on what goes on. And so if the state does something like takes over K through 12, for instance, how do you keep it from just being one of many property tax buy-downs? Because I'm willing to bet that everybody in this room has been a benefit of the state's property tax buy-down schemes. Yet, many of you probably never felt that benefit. And why is that? You know, if the state sinks in $200, $300 million in property tax, should you have felt some relief? But you probably didn't, because local entities, many of them, unfortunately, use that opportunity to reassess your property values. And so that's what we're trying to figure out. How do we keep that from happening? How do we keep K through 12, we buy that down? How do we keep it from just being another buy down?
Yeah, I think they explained it pretty well, so I'm not going to do a lot of repetition. But the local government raises property taxes. We don't do it in Bismarck. So I think in the address that Governor made, he said to call your local people. I mean, it's not us raising your taxes. But the writing's on the wall. If we don't do something, it's going to be another initiated measure, and then property taxes will be gone. And we'll have to deal with it then. There's like 50 bills trying to address this issue right now. I'm not sure how many are still alive or not, but there's 50 of them that were filed. So we'll see what we come up with when we look at them all and go from there.
I think one of the issues, concerns related to property tax is for so long, especially in rural communities, things have been neglected. We have not received the kind of support that we really need. We don't have the resources that other larger communities have. And when you look at your schools, infrastructure, all of those kinds of things, it's just really caught up with us. And so that's what local governments are being faced with, whether it's the city or the county. You know, sometimes they just don't have a choice. And so it's snowballed into this great big mess. And it's going to be difficult to unravel. And it's going to take you right up until the 11th hour probably of the session before the questions surrounding that are resolved. Other questions?
I'm Pat Hansen. I'm the Director of South Central Adult Services here in Valley City. Representative Johnston, I believe that you've gotten testimony on our behalf for the Transportation Committee that you're on. I guess there's a few things. We're also part of 1012. We're also part of 2012 because we get funding, and we're a private nonprofit, but we get funding from DHS and from the Department of Transportation. And just as a basis for consideration, I guess we provided 161,000 meals in this region in this last fiscal year. And we provided 112,000 rides for every purpose. Federal transit requires that we provide rides to the general public. Probably 60% of our rides are to elderly and disabled. That bill, that 1106, is the one that I sent a testimony on to the committee that you're on. That was sponsored by Representative Munson. I'm not sure, you can maybe give me some information as to where that's at. I know there's some conflict between the rural and the urban transit systems. And we did get $1.5 million was added statewide into the rural transit system last year, which did help us. But now in this session, they reduced our meals income, in the budget that's currently there now by $520,000 statewide, which we weren't asking for more money. We would like to be included on the inflationary part of it and have some stability in funding. Our funding now is that we have to go fight for it every session. We have to fight for everything we get.
So that's your question then?
I would like to see where they're at with 1106.
All right, thank you.
And ask for your support on both 1012 and 2012.
1106 is it's in Transportation Committee. I think I do remember it, unless it, so it's in appropriations then. Okay, so I think I remember getting your email, but I haven't seen that bill specifically yet, I don't believe. So, but I'll look at it today when I get a chance.
Yeah, I'll watch for those bills. I just have to commend you on the work that you're doing. We have one bill that Great Plains Food Bank is asking for money. And I never realized how many people utilize these food programs. It's almost 21% of the population in 2023 went to a food bank to get food. That was kind of an eye-opener. And as the inflation gets worse, we're going to see more people utilizing these food programs. So it's one area I think is really important. And this is these are the people that are hurting the most. They don't have enough money for food. And we just can't look the other way on some of those. So I see Pat on Bismarck quite a few times on bills, testifying and whatnot, and I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Another question over here.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Kruger. I'm a resident of Valley City and I teach elementary school in Fort Ransom. My question is on a recently introduced Senate Bill 2355. And I believe this is Education Committee, Senator Wobbema. It directs the superintendent of public instruction to include in the K-12 curriculum teaching intelligent design as a valid scientific theory. By definition, it is not a scientific theory, but rather a philosophical discussion. My question to you is, do you see a place in the public school curriculum for teaching intelligent design, and if so, where?
I do see a place for it teaching intelligent design. I think you might view it as a philosophical approach, but it is still an approach that's held by those people of faith as how we got to where we are. And I think it's, I'm not sure where it would probably fall under.
Do you see a problem putting it in the science curriculum because it is not a provable scientific theory? It does not fit the definition of scientific theory as we teach it.
Well, to that extent, you can kind of sort of almost say evolution doesn't fit into that theory either because it's not provable. It's just a theory because it takes place over eons of time based on the theory. And so that you might make that argument. But does it fit in science? You catch me unawares. That's one of those things a person would have to kind of sit and ponder for a while to try to decide where they think it might fit. So.
I encourage you to do
I will have to, it'll be interesting to see what the testimony brings to fore on that. Yes, there are some things that we bring in that get brought to legislation that where you scratch your head and go, what's the problem we're trying to solve here? And why are we talking about this and why are we legislating? I mean, I ask myself that a lot. But I understand, you know, powers or pressures and people that want to have their voice heard do that kind of thing. So yeah, I'll have to, thank you for bringing that to my attention. I'll have to sit down and gonkulate on it for a bit.
Gonkulate. Mike's words. Hi, Elizabeth. I think that Mike touched on this, but in order for something to be considered science, it has to be able to be replicated in a laboratory, right?
No, scientific theory is that questions are able to be proposed and proven and further with scientific research.
Consistently replicated, right?
Not necessarily, it can be disproven.
So the impetus here is one side believes that you come from a primordial soup, right? The other side believes you come from an intelligent creator. Both are belief systems. I mean, whether you believe one or the other, you have to have faith, right? That a God exists, or you have to have faith that you came from a primordial soup, because it's not testable.
But my dispute is teaching it as a scientific theory, requiring teachers to teach it as a scientific theory. I'm actually fine if you want to include it in the curriculum as part of the mythology in the language arts. It would lie in there.
Oh, well, fair is fair then. Shouldn't teaching a child primordial soup be in that same department if you're going to say that teaching intelligent design should be in the myth department?
Say that again, I'm not sure what you meant.
Well, you know, we all know that evolution and teaching a child that they come from a soup or another animal is presented as almost fact, even though it is theory, because it's not you're not able to replicate it in a lab. But you're saying if you teach intelligent design, it's the same thing, right?
But scientific theory doesn't have to be replicated in a lab.
I believe it does.
It has to be
That's science.
questioned and furthered with further research. That we can't replicate things in a lab necessarily. That happened millions of years ago, thousands of years ago.
You have a fossil record, you have physical proof. What is the difference?
I think we're going to have to agree to disagree on this. I think there's two sides of a coin. I think in a private school setting, and even in a homeschool setting, you'll say a homeschool student actually knows more about evolution than a public school student does. So, I mean, which form of evolution are you talking about? Are you talking about Big Bang Theory? You know, so there's like 7 different forms, and so you got to define your terms here a little bit better. I think I'm done.
Dwight, did you have anything to add, or you want to stay? Okay.
Now, myself, I don't understand why evolution is in the science book, because there's no proof. I mean, a fossil is not proof that some animal changed from one species to another. I mean, there's actually a reward out there for any evidence of evolution being true at all, and nobody's come forward.
I think Mike and I agree. Why do we even need this one? I don't know why we need that bill, any more than we need Senate Bill 2035, which tries to redefine public-spirited organization that's really going to really going to hurt our very small communities and our amateur athletics and things like that. So it passed on the Senate side, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. And it's headed toward the House. So if you see Senate Bill 2035, I would ask both of you to kill it. There's just no reason to hurt our small communities and our amateur athletics. This is about gaming funds, and our Lions Club uses that to support themselves. So
Senate Bill 2035 came out of the interim after a lot of discussion of trying to make sure that charitable organizations are actually doing charitable organization things, and it's not just a segue into a private group of people funding their hobbies. That's what this was trying to do. I voted against this bill because the language is confusing. It doesn't really answer that question clearly, and so I'm in agreement. I'm okay with clarifying what charitable organizations should be and should not be, but this language didn't do that. And so we'll see what the House does with it. And that's where the argument kind of lies. And that's why the vote was as close as it was.
So just kill it, you guys. Please. Got your marching orders, just kill it. Okay, more questions?
I have two more, and I think we should try for it.
Yes.
Mayor?
Okay, so is there someone else that over there, we've got people who have not asked questions before, so.
I missed you, it's okay.
So nothing like dissing the mayor a little bit, sorry. So question in the back.
Hi, Valerie Hubbard, I live in Barnes County. My question concerns the electrical grid.
The electrical grid?
The electrical grid. What is the legislature doing work-wise with the PSC to make sure there is plenty of funding to upgrade North Dakota's electrical grid? Because it is a matter of when it goes down. It will go down. This is a very important issue to everybody. And it's a federal issue, it's a state issue. But I'd like to know what the legislature, if there's any legislation, and if anybody is giving any thought to it. Because this is a very serious issue.
Okay, I'm going to give these guys a minute to take a look and see what they can find on electrical grids specifically. And in the meantime, is there another question from someone?
One there, right?
From someone who
And
is...
is there anybody else who has not asked a question? Because we've been trying to give precedence to that. Put your hand up, we'll try to get you. If everybody's patient, I'm certainly willing to keep.
So is there a specific bill number related to that grid question?
I just put it out.
You're just asking if there is something.
If they're looking at it, thinking about it.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Okay, and mine is related to that. There's a bill 1239 that is proposing Bitcoin mining in residential areas. And to do that, it would have to disrupt the planning and zoning and so forth. And I don't know that our grid can handle it. I know in town here, we could not send enough energy through the current transmission in town to make that stuff run. And nationally, there is a shortage of power, and everything that's coming new requires more water and more power. And it's noisy and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, I shared testimony with you guys, and if you would please review that, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
You had a question? Anybody else?
Once again, Anita Tulp from the Valley City Barnes County Public Library. And I just want to make a quick comment about the property taxes because, of course, those affect all of us. And I am concerned about them as well as anybody else. But when I stood in the street this summer and watched my house burn and the firefighters of Valley City come and put it out, saving a lot of our stuff and all of the houses around my house, I know that that's a very important service to support, and I hope that we find a solution to property tax relief and as well as support those kind of entities. I have a question about Senate Bill number 2278, and this one was introduced by you as one of those people, Mr. Wobbema. And it looks like this bill is just a management study, and it's relating to the retention of library materials. And I just have a question on why this is an issue, because of course our library only has so much room. So to keep an original copy and then another copy and perhaps another version beyond that would be detrimental to our use of space. And also, if authors decide, if they wrote a book like 20 years ago and they decide they want to update their language to be more socially correct or less offensive, that should be their prerogative. And if they expect the previous copy to be removed, I would want to respect that. So if I could just get your comments, I'm kind of on the fence about this one. I'm not either for or against. So if I could get your comments on what this is supposed to do, that would be great.
Okay, Anita, yeah, I'm just kind of refreshing my memory on this. Primarily my support of this is that we just preserve our heritage from a literary perspective. So if you got a book or some kind of item you might find in the library that's been there, that was, so let's just say somebody decides to take all of Shakespeare's stuff and rewrite it in modern language and virtually destroy all of the historical record of what Shakespeare actually wrote when he wrote it. That's what this bill, in my mind, that's what this bill is trying to do, is preserve that piece. Your example, I can see and understand your example. If the author decides to rewrite it and update it, then that's the author's prerogative. And but if it's something we would classify as a classic kind of piece of literature, we want to retain that classic nature of what our history is from a literary perspective. To me, that's what this bill is doing, is preserving that. So that's.
How are we doing on overall time? We're scheduled to run till 11:30. 11:03. Did you have a question right here in front? Oh, you coughed. Okay. Okay, so this has really been, I think, a very good session, and really appreciate all of you participating. My closing comment here is to our legislators, and I said it just a little bit, touched on it earlier, is that communities of our size are often at a disadvantage. Most of the time we're at a disadvantage because of our population and resources. So I would just ask that, especially when you have communities of population 10,000 and below, please look out for us. Please support the kinds of bills where we can tap into funding like the sanitary sewer, like the natural gas pipeline, helping out with the kinds of things that really brings dollars into rural North Dakota. So please do that. And no other questions? We can offer closing comments then from the legislators.
We just have one unanswered question. Valerie, my quick search under subject matter there, I don't find anything pertaining to the electrical grid or the power grid at all. So I'm not sure that there's anything in our current legislative agenda to address that concern. So at this point, next session. Thank you for coming. Thank you for to the League of Women Voters and Economic Development for hosting us here, and appreciate the great questions and the concerns that you all have with regard to what goes on in the state. And I try to be as available as I can. Please contact me if you have questions, concerns, and while we may not agree, I will at least sit down and listen. You can just ask some of the people in here that I disagree with, but we sat down and talked over coffee and at least addressed the concerns. So I always want to know what your concerns are, and like I said, while we may not agree, I'm always looking for that gold nugget that gets thrown on the table that we can take it and do something with together. Thank you.
in my opening remarks, I made a mistake on a bill number. The bill that seeks to keep a rapist out of a school is House Bill 1247. And once again, I'd encourage you to please contact the House Education Committee, express your support for that bill. The testimony on that was heartbreaking. The mother of one of the victims told her story, and no child should have to go back to a school and face their attacker. That should just be common sense, but unfortunately there's not a provision in the Century Code to protect a victim in such a case, so that's what we're seeking to fix. Anyway, I appreciate all your questions. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for having us out today. And I'll be off to Bismarck here in a minute, but if before I leave, if you have anything else, information you'd like to pass along to me, do that. I'd be happy to talk to you. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you all for coming to today, and about power grids and stuff, that's probably a good question for the Public Service Commission. We really don't try to tell them what to do. But I have one question for Dave. I'd like to explain the purpose of a Bitcoin mining. I tried to look into that, what the purpose was, and it looked like a science fiction movie to me, but I couldn't understand it. But I know they are building a data center down by Ellenville, and now I'm hearing they don't think they're going to have enough power to even run that. And what I've heard is that they could consume all the power that we could produce by coal in one facility. And it's just mind-boggling. I don't know what all they're going to do and what they're going to do with all the information, how they're going to, make a profit on it. I haven't studied enough to know, but this Bitcoin thing, I did get your email on that it's not good because we can't supply the power. But I just don't understand what the purpose of it is. I'm sure you can agree with me on that one, but yeah, we'll spend a couple days talking about it. But anyway, by all means, send in testimony on bills you're concerned with. Send us an email. It always helps us to alert something that's coming through another committee that maybe they missed. And that's what we need to hear about. So again, thank you for coming.
That concludes the forum. Thank you so much.